Hello everyone. In today's session, we will continue exploring data structures in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. And we have covered so far two sessions, and in which we have discussed about base enum and extended data types, and then we also covered tables and the relationship between the table and also the methods of table which contain the behavior, and then there were certain attributes or properties including the indexing and field groups. So these things we have so far covered, and so the solution and the project is in front of you in the screen, where we have created two EDTs, resort group ID and resort ID. And then there were base enum types for resort types, and basically these were dropped in the resort table and resort group. So basically there is a relationship between these two tables, foreign key relationship. The resort group, for each of the resort, there will be definitely a group inside the resort group table. So we'll start by, actually we are developing a resort management system. So resort is simply, in terms of facility management system, there is a company which is providing facility management system. So definitely they are having various resort on a beautiful countryside. So we need to develop a certain module for this purpose. So that's why we are covering, the resort group and resort table as a real world scenario. So in our today's session, we will define a parameter table, which is also necessary for a new module or a specific module, because each of the module will contain a parameter table definitely. And parameter table, basically I have already explained in one of these lectures as well, that will contain only a one record, or that is basically a settings, default settings. Sometime or sometime certain feature is enabled through a checkbox or through a lookup maybe. So that parameter will cover this purpose, and one record per company can be kept in a parameter table. So basically a table will contain a list of fields also, which can be default or company specific options used in the code to basically determine what should happen. So parameter table is basically created first, and then various fields that act as parameter are added, uh, so that we can create a solution. So in this one, we will create a parameter table, and we will just go ahead with right clicking on the table folder of table, and then we can either use the recently used objects which we have created, or we can select a new item in order to create a table. So we'll select the recently used object. So we'll just click it, and then we can just give it a name like PKR, and in the same manner we can put a resort parameters. So the same way, like we are giving prefixes here for PKR resort group and resort table, so we are keeping the same naming conventions. But normally when you are using existing module, for example purchase module or procurement module, so you can prefix here like purch, although you will prefix your own as a company you can put abbreviation of your company, or as a solution provider you can put your own abbreviation. And sometime uh, some people they prefer not to put an underscore, but for me it is easy to easily identify this is my object, so I am putting an underscore. But you can also avoid the underscore, it is up to you. And then you can put a module prefix here. So since this is a new module which is for resort management system, So I will give this word like resort for each of the object which so far I have created. So uh, basically previously in base enum I have missed that one. That was FMS, which is facility management system and resort. But definitely it will be a good idea if we can either put it as a facility management system or we can put a resort. So I will just rename it. So it is better to also give it, I mean, remove the FMS in the base enum so that all looks the same. So that I will do. But for now, I will just give this name, and I will just go ahead creating the table. And now the table is in front of me without any fields, and the table property is in front of me. So I will just create a label to give it a name here, and so the name will be like resort management parameters. So just go ahead in the label file and give it the same label, resort management parameters. And also you can give it a name here like resort. It can be abbreviation as well, resort management parameters. So once created, just copy the label and put in the label property of the table. So just go ahead and in the label you can just copy paste here, and then the cache lookup which we have discussed in previous session as well. This is in order to enable the caching when you are and avoiding the round trip every time to the DB. So for a parameter, it is not harmful to give it as an entire table, because ultimately this will be kept in memory and it will only hold a single record. So it is not at all harmful, but rather you can also take an example by the existing table as well, which will also contain a similar one. So I can just open, for example, per parameter table, and here I can see an example like cache lookup. Here they have used the found, and also we can see vend parameters, which is account payable parameters, and so cache lookup here also it is found. So I think it is better to put also found to keep the consistency, but we can also put it the entire table, that is also not harmful. So even I will follow the existing example. When a record is found, then it will be cached. So I will just use the similar pattern. So instead of entire table, I will use found. Then there is a table group which we have also discussed in previous session, and here we can use easily the parameter because that denotes a parameter table. So this is in order to categorize various tables. So we have already discussed and covered. If you want to have an explanation, you can refer to my previous sessions regarding data structure. So I will just choose parameter here, and then I will enable the audit fields, which are created by created date time. Whoever has created the first time the record, it will keep track of the user ID and date and time stamp. And then I will also go to modify by, so whoever is changing it last time, so it will keep the track, and the date and time stamp will also be kept here. And then there is a developer documentation step, so that we also need to provide about, I mean, this will contain for a developer what this table basically holds. So for that we will just go to our label file, and in our label file we can put here like first of all we'll put the label and giving the name like PKR resort parameters table contains settings used within the we can put here resort management solution. So this will be our label, and we can abbreviate this as we'll put here like resort parameters dev doc. So as an abbreviation we can put just like this one, and we'll copy it and put in the developer documentation. We'll paste it here, and now comes the part of adding the fields. So what we can do is, first of all, there is a resort group ID EDT here, which we can just drag and drop to the fields node here, and it will create a new field in the table. So we can just rename this one, and we can put it like default resort group ID. So whenever creating a record, so the default value from the parameter can be copied wherever we will be defaulting it. So that is use of this one, and then we can also go to AOT and go to the data types of AOT, and in extended data type we can find one EDT called parameters key here, and this parameter key EDT, so basically this is a kind of string type, and we can just drag and drop this one also to the fields node, and we can just give it like, we can rename it like just key, and to refer it to some parameter we can go to search parameters. So there is a field also here this in the same way, and this one is of integer type. Basically it is not a string type, so we can just put it also here as a key field, and we can also uh, make it invisible or make it hide. So for that we can go to the visible property and mark it as no. So in this way this field will be hidden when you open the table in table browser. So basically this key field is used to put a constraint to limit the table to only having one record. So all visible fields need to be in a field group definitely. So now we need to just create a field group, and in the field group we can just give it a name like defaults, and also we can put a value in the label field. So in the label Eclipse icon here we can find a suitable label here, and so we can just put the defaults, and we can put here match exactly instead of match text, otherwise it will contain all text which will be having this you know containing even more words in the text. So we'll just use match exactly to have the same exact label. So we'll just copy this label or sys id, and we can just put it here. In this way we can use existing labels which are sys labels basically. And now what we can do is the visible fields like key, we have already put it as invisible. So we can just drag this field and put in the defaults field group. In this way the visible fields can be put in the field group, invisible cannot be. So basically the why we have put the defaults label as well, because the same on a parameter form we will definitely use later on. Now what we can do is we can go to the relationship node here, and we can just right click and go to the new, and in the new we can go to the foreign key relationship here, and we can just give it a name like just let me this pkr underscore resort group. So we'll just give it a name same like the resort group table. So we can remove pkr prefix, because already this table contains pkr prefix, so no need to repeat the same in all the fields and relations or field groups or any of the object, because already there is a prefix of your own company, or so that's why we can then skip prefixing each and every of the node inside the table. So once we have renamed this, so then what we can do is just click on it and set the properties. First of all, on the relationship like resort group. So first of all, we need to identify the related table here with which we need to have a relationship here. So that table is definitely as the name suggests, pkr underscore resort group. So what we can do is just we can open the lookup, and we can also find all the table with the same prefix, and here is our table which is pkr underscore a resort group table here. So this one now we have created a relationship, and now next one will be the cardinality. So in the cardinality we can have 0 and 1 here. So either the parameter they exist or they do not exist, but if they exist they will only hold one single record. So that's why 0 and 1, and a related table cardinality will also be 0 and 1. So why it is 0 and 1? Because the resort group can have a group value or it cannot have. So when the field is empty here, default resort group ID, and so they definitely that does not exist on the resort group. So we can make it 0 and 1, and so it is not mandatory. Zeros means optional definitely, and basically in the cardinality basically a one to many relationship would use 0 more or 1 more, but since we are using here only a single one, so that can have either 0 1 or exactly 1. So 0 1 is making it optional, but exactly 1 is making it mandatory, and similarly is 0 more which is making it optional, and one more is having making it mandatory but to have multiple records. So now this is 0 1, and the related table cardinality is also 0 1. Now relationship type we need to define here. So we can have now here as an association, because it does not depend on each other and not necessary to have a record. So that's why we'll use the association. And basically composition would be used when there is composition can be used when there is header oblique lines data sets where deleting the header should delete the lines record. So in this case it is not necessary, and so basically parameter record will be associated with a resort record. So that's why we are keeping it association. And now what we can do is go to the on delete property, and on delete we can make it cascade restricted or cascade restricted. So basically what it shows, basically it shows that I mean, if the parent record is deleted, so the child record will also get deleted. So that is a cascade. And if it is I mean restricted, so the parent record cannot be deleted until the child record is also deleted. And cascade restricted is also in the same way. I mean what cascade restricted does, basically when you have three tables, for example, let's say A, B and C. So B is child of A and C is child of B. So in this case, if you are going to delete A, which is the top parent or grand table, so it will delete all the records in B and C, which are the child table. B is child of A and C is child of B. So when you delete the topmost parent, which is in A, so it will automatically delete the related records in B and C. But what will happen when you I'm talking just about cascade restricted. When you delete the record in B table and there are corresponding records in A, which is the parent to B, and in the C, which is child to B, so that will not allow to delete it. So that is called a cascade restricted, which is little bit complex. But in this way, like I have given the example of three tables, there is A, which is a grandparent, and then there is a parent, which is B, and then there is a child, which is C. In this way, you can understand that cascade restricted does not allow when you delete the record in table, for example, B. And definitely when you delete from C, it will allow, because that is child table, so that can be allowed in any of the scenario. But the problem is for parents, basically. So when you delete B, the record in B table, it will not allow to delete, but it will allow to delete in the topmost parent A, the corresponding record in B and C. So this is the difference here. So we have explained that cascade allows when you delete from the top parent having two table in relationship, parent and child relationship. When you delete a record in A, so the record in B table will get also deleted, but that will be restricted when you use this on delete restricted value here. So I hope that explains the scenario. And so what we can use here is restricted, so we'll be using on delete restricted here. So then there comes a property called role, and basically this is the role of relation, and it must be unique within this table. We will need to specify this if we have two foreign key relations to the same table. For example, on CS table, this is two relations to cust table, because there is invoice account and there is in customer account. So these are two having the this role defined, and basically there are two fields that relate to the table. So in that case, the role will need to be populated in order to differentiate between them. So I can show you, we can go to the sales table. in AOT, and then we can just open it, and in the properties we can go to the relations basically, and in the relation we can go to basically order customer. So this is one, and here the role is sales table, and then there must be, so this is invoice customer, and in the invoice customer also the role sales table is used. So in this way, when you are defining two relationship, so there you can use this role, otherwise no need of defining the role. Hope that explains this also. And now what we can do is just we have defined the properties on the relationship, so we can just right click on the relationship, and we can go to the new, and we can select here normal, and that will create a normal relationship. And here we need to define the fields value here. So first is field in the current table, and the other one is field in related table. So the tables are already defined in the main relationship. So in the field we can select here the default resort group ID, and in the related field we can select here the resort group ID. So in this way we have selected the correct value, and now this relationship is complete. And now what we can do is go to the index and define a new index, and put a name to it, just like key IDX, key index, and then we can drop the key field to it. So basically that is by default a unique value. So it is allow duplicates is no, and so this will act as a constant index. And now we can create our find and exist methods, which are necessary for each of the table, because this is a best practice. Whenever you define a table, so that table on a certain key value should return the table buffer or table record, and similarly it should also show against a key value whether the record exists or does not exist. So what we can do is we can just copy our previous method which we have already created. This is our exist, and the other one is our find. We can just copy it and go to the method node, and just select a new method command, which will create our class extending the common. Common is for table, this is a common class, and our class table class is extending that common. And now what we can do is we can just paste the copied method, and here basically there is no key value because only single record will exist. So we can just remove the parameter, and once we remove the parameter, so what we can do here, just replace the table name, and in this way no need of where clause here, because only single record will be there. So whenever you make a select first only rec ID from the parameter table, so it will return definitely a value or a zero value in the record rec ID integer 64. data type or field type. So either 0 value will be returned when there is no record, or there will be an integer value. So once this statement returns either 0 or some integer value, so then dot rec id means the table buffer which it is returning. So the dot rec id will compare it with 0. If it is not 0 means it will return true, or if it is 0, so it will return false. So when it returns true, definitely that means there is a certain record. So in this way we have implemented this exist without parameter. And now what we can do is in the find we can just remove the parameter, because that is not necessary, only single record will be there. And so we can just remove the concurrency model here, only a single record is there. So also here we can define our table, which is a resort parameter, and we can give it a name like param table, and then param table can be used wherever in the method body. And now we can what we can do is just remove this. Instead of resort id, we can put here like dot key, and we can put it like 0, and just move it to just after select for update here. And then what we can do is remove this one, the concurrency model, and we can put an if clause to check whether the table buffer is returned. So for that we can just check the rec id. So rec id, when the rec id is equals to 0 means there is no record return, and when the param table is tmp, is temporary, so we'll make it a not condition, means when it is a regular, so we'll put a not operator. So we can now use a method of a company which will be create parameter, and in create parameter we can just pass the table buffer here. So it will basically create the parameter record. So when there is no record found, and it is not a temporary, means it is a regular table, so it will create a parameter. So in this way we have just implemented the find method as well, and the exist method. Also we need to implement here, just right click and go to insert override method, and go to the validate methods. Basically these are very important method, and they they enforce the validations when you basically delete a record, or when you change a field value or update a field value. So similarly, the validate field value also. And then there is a validate write when the whole record buffer is written to the database. So definitely the whole record at that time, the validation will be fired when the whole record is put, and when there is a field set or field value set. So basically here what we can do is override the validate delete, and just remove the whole thing, whole body, and what we can do is return check failed, because we are not allowing to delete a parameter record. So for that purpose we need to just implement cannot delete a record label. That text we can just copy here and go to the label. Cannot delete transaction, so that will be fired whenever record is try to be deleted. So just remove the documentation, but you need to do the documentation. That is a best practice, so I'm just avoiding it in order to make it simple. So now what we can do is just let me check one more thing is go to the purge parameters. In the purge parameter I need to check okay, so that's it for now, and I will just save this, and also enable the database synchronization on the project level. Just go to the properties and check the synchronized database on build is true, because the new table has been created. So then we need to just build it, and during the build it will also synchronize the new table with DB, and it will get created. So if there are any errors, those errors will also be reflected. So basically I have received one error and a few warnings. Just double click it and it will let you go there, and you can see that it is saying that basically the return type should be here, because I have copy pasted, so need to be a resort parameter instead of a resort table. So now I will again make it build. So that's it. Now we have just finished with our three tables. That is a resort parameter table, and containing the parameters for facility management system, or you can call it resort management system. And there is a resort group for categorization of various resorts which are kept in resort table. So then we'll also in our next sessions, which will be soon, I will create and upload, in which we'll just create header and line tables for booking the resorts whenever a client is asking to book a resort, so that we need to create further tables. And once we are done, we can again move towards user interface, that is forms for data entry in these tables. So just uh, keep tuned to the channel, and just check with other videos also which I have uploaded previously, and definitely the new videos will be coming soon. And please follow the same examples. Just create your own scenario, some real-time scenario, some industry example in which you need to create a module. For example, it can be a real estate module, the people or agents working in real estate industry, or it can be construction industry, or any other industry which you can think of, or which is of a certain use, or if you are working somewhere in a certain company and you want to develop your own module, then definitely you can follow these sessions, and then you can create your own module by following these examples, because I will be covering mostly the things which are required in for a module. So just to keep tuned, and also share the video once you have seen it, and please watch the video till the end, and also subscribe to the channel if you have not done so far, in order to whenever the new video is uploaded, you can get timely the notifications. And thank you very much, guys, for your support, because I am much obliged once it has already crossed 800 subscribers, and I am hoping soon that it will cross definitely 1000, and also the required watch hours, which are 4000, which is still not covered halfway. So I'm hoping that that will also be covered once I will be uploading the videos and you guys are watching on the channel. Thank you very much, and take care, and stay tuned for the next video.